The days of overpaying for a house are over. I didn't say they aren't still expensive, but these days you can negotiate for a better deal. The trick is to know when you got the seller right where you want them. Do you want to know how to tell if a house is overpriced? Well, here's 5 hacks, 5 things to know before you put your offer in. Home prices are dropping across the country. The news is making the headlines every day, it seems. In fact, the term housing recession has made an entrance. Some home sellers are in a state of denial. Their dream of massive profits in an as-is sale, those are gone. And the proof is in the fact that houses just aren't selling like they used to. Here's 5 signs screaming that sellers need you more than you need them. High days on the market is the first sign of a potential ripoff. Before the pandemic, it took between 60 and 90 days for a home to sell, depending on the time of the year. During the pandemic and well past the worst parts of it, money was so cheap, housing so scarce, and demand so high, it got to the point where homes were under contract in hours. Sight unseen, well over asking price, and few, if any, contingencies was commonly needed to win a contract. It had gotten to the point where sellers would ask why their home didn't sell over the course of a single weekend. For this first sign to make sense, you've got to know how unusual and frankly extreme the metrics over the last couple of years have been. Those days are gone and the tables have turned, but not all sellers want to believe this. Inventory is rising because homes are slower to sell. Now money is comparatively expensive, strangling home buyer participation, and inventory is soaring at a record pace. With more homes on the market now, buyers are having more options to choose from, and they can see for themselves how homes compare. And that's the key. I worked for a real estate company where we sold between 700 and 900 homes a year. This was back in the early 2010s when we actually had to sell a house. And the simple formula was this. In order for a house to sell first, it had to be in a little better condition and priced a little bit less than a competitor's. That's it. And it worked hundreds of times per year. These days, buyers are voting with their feet and walking away from sellers who think premium pricing and selling as is still works. And the facts are in, it doesn't. The bottom line, if the house you're looking at has significantly more days on the market than the others in that neighborhood, then that's the key. There is no specific number, just more days than usual in that area. That's your sign to negotiate for a great deal or move on. The second sign you might be looking at a rip-off is the house you like is priced way more than the comparables in the area. If a home is priced much higher than the comps in the area, the simple truth is the seller, or maybe the agent, sees exaggerated value in some aspect of the house, or the agent just wants to get their sign in the yard to get sign calls from buyers at the very least, because that really does happen. In this post-pandemic scorching market, some sellers still want to believe they deserve premium dollars just because their house is available. We've said that before. The higher days on market prove the sellers in denial, and typically it takes several of their neighbors' homes who listed later and sold before them to get them to lower the price, negotiate aggressively, or pull their home off the market. The bottom line, Dave Ramsey, a well-known financial authority based like me in the Nashville area, says an overpriced home will sit in a hot market just like in a cool market. If a home is priced higher than similar homes in the area, that's your sign to negotiate for a great deal or, again, move on. Have you ever been looking at a particular house you like on the MLS only to have it disappear, then come back on the market in a few days or a few weeks later? That's the third sign of a potential ripoff. What the seller and the agent are trying to do is make the home listing appear fresh by restarting or recycling the days on market, because human nature tends to see new and fresh as exciting and different. You see this when a new restaurant opens up in your neighborhood. There's usually a line out the door despite what's on the menu. In most MLSs, you can see the marketing history. What you'll want to do is see the total days on market, including when the home had different MLS numbers, because that's quite a trick. After a home's been listed for a while and the days on market start to pile up, the single most common question is, and you know what it is, I wonder what's wrong with the house. This is exactly the question the seller is trying to navigate around by withdrawing and relisting the property. The real estate market is fueled by a constantly changing pool of buyers and sellers. So, in fact, a relisted home can look fresh to a buyer who's new to the scene. The bottom line, Be sure to count up all the days and price changes over the entire marketing history of a house. The more trouble they've had, the better deal you should expect, or move on. If you're looking in a certain area and a lot of the homes are selling, but there's one in particular that you like that keeps hanging around, and it seems that the price isn't all that far off, chances are there's something wrong showing up in the inspections. The majority of issues at tanks a deal are water problems, HVAC on its last legs, leaking roofs, mold issues, and foundation problems. Most of the time the seller promises to remedy these problems, but once these types of issues are uncovered, a buyer will lose confidence in the house, and rightfully so. If a house seems to have a lot of little things that need to be fixed, that can be a sign regular maintenance wasn't the owner's strong suit, and there could be more surprises waiting. The bottom line, if the price seems right and the house just sits, something is pushing buyers away. There's plenty of houses out there available without problems, so you might just move on. Have you ever driven through an area and it seems like every other house is up for sale? I have, and usually that means something major is about to change. There was one heavily traveled road near where I live, and 1 year fully half of the houses on that road went up for sale. A year later, the city brought out the bulldozers and started construction on widening the road. Those owners lost half their front yards to a turning lane. The bottom line, if you see a lot of signs going up, the community knows something you don't. You need to find out what that is and if you can live with it. The whole point of this video is that as a buyer, you now have options, and hopefully what you've learned will give you enough ammunition to negotiate a much better deal for yourself and your family. If you like this video, please share with friends and family to help me spread the word. Consider subscribing so you know when the next video drops. As always, thank you so much for watching. Talk to you soon.